Hi, Misha here, and got something a little different, at least as different as we can come up with during these times. It's actually the first time I've ever ordered anything from Midwest as far as firearms. This critter here. Yes, this is a pistol. This is their semi-automatic pistol version of the new Air Force GAU5A ASDW Aircrew Self-Defense Weapon. Chambered for 5.56 NATO, 223. It is a takedown gun with some neat features. Comes in this very oversized box, but I have to say the presentation's pretty good. Obviously the gun's already out, but it came with a hat and came wrapped in a nice plastic bag. Came with a pretty good accessory kit here, and you get a beer cozy or Coke cozy, whatever, cable lock, plastic. I'm sure they just use a generic size box for everything, otherwise that'd be crazy, but it did come in this, and then this was double boxed, so the packaging is fine. It came with one short rail section, which I just plugged on and put a little, kind of made a ad hoc hand stop with. Came with Magpul M-Bus Pro metal sights, and it came with a little 10-round mag, which, you know, normally I don't like 10-round mags, but considering the purpose of this firearm, actually fits the aesthetic quite well. And speaking of the mag, let's use it and do our first couple of shots test fire. ASDW, very first shots. Helps if I take the safety up. Held open. So yeah, the first test firing using the supplied small mag went well. And I like this little mag, but you know, this is not band times, so let's slap a normal mag in it, because obviously it will feed from anything. So the history of this gun, pretty interesting. Brought out a couple of others just for visual aids. This is my Daniel Defense Mark 18 pistol. This is based on the Mark 18 Mod 1. Has a Daniel Defense quad rail, 10.3 inch barrel, also of course in 223, all that good stuff. And this is one of the smallest guns in military service. And also a good little pistol. But the Air Force primarily hasn't been using that. It's more of a special forces type gun. Typically, Air Force aircrews have been armed with the standard Beretta M9. Some of them have carried the M11, the SIG P220 and 228, and of course today they're starting to phase in Fat Cats. Yes, I know. They're starting to phase in SIG M18s. But back when this had its genesis around 2015, the Beretta was standard. But yeah, by 2016 they knew that they needed a new aircrew survival gun, because sometimes a pistol just wouldn't cut it. It's 9mm, limited ammo capacity, limited range, and sometimes a pistol on the hip could be ripped away during an ejection. So they wanted something that would fit in the standard ACES Mark II ejection seat kit, which was 16 inches, or is, I should say, 16 inches by 14 inches by 3.5 inches. It basically sits under the seat. Now, the new gun needed to fit in there, but it wasn't just in there alone. They also had a flashlight in there, flares, other self-preservation, survival gear, maybe rations, even a raft, so the gun had to fit in a very small space. And the reason is, with all the fighting in the Middle East, there have been several accounts dating all the way back to the Kosovo and all that in the late 90s of air crews ejecting and being in pretty sticky situations. Unfortunately, some of them captured or even tortured to death. So there was that push to give people something to protect themselves with. Now, an early effort in 2017 was to take something like this, or rather like a GAU5A, which is the Air Force's carbine, or an M4, and cut the barrel back to the gas block where it would be, right at 8 inches, right at the muzzle. And also there wouldn't be room for a flash hider, so it could be small enough to still fit, even kind of kitty corner in the Aces kit, because cutting it back that, you're still at about 20 inches, 19 maybe. They tried that out, but as you would imagine, such a gun had excessive muzzle flash, recoil, sound was deafening, and of course, to make it reliable, you had to open the gas port up to basically dime size. Okay, not really, but close. Which meant, the wear and tear on the parts. This was not an optimal solution at all. So, in June of 2018, they announced the ASDW as the new survival gun. And it's a pretty radical departure and very unique for military use, even though it uses quite a bit of off-the-shelf components, some of them, like the barrel system, somewhat modified. But the idea was to give downed pilots about 120 rounds, so 4 magazines full of ammo, the ability to defend themselves 3 to 4 hours before rescue could get there, and they would have these, and they would still be carrying their issued sidearm is kind of a backup. But they needed something that had more range. They wanted to be able to get out to about 200 meters. So even something like the Mark 18 with its 10 and some change inch barrel would be pushing it. So they wanted to get as long of a barrel as possible, while having it still fit in the Aces ejection seat survival kit. And this is what they came up with. But before we continue, we'll get into the specs in just a minute. Let's go back to the range and run some more mags through it. Then we'll come back and talk about how it's shot and, like I said, the specs and all that good stuff. ASDW Performance. ASDW. The ejection where the shells are hitting over here is hilariously sounding. ASDW. ASDW. And what ammo was that?
This is Wolf Colt.
ASDW. Last mag of the day. So we put the required 120 rounds through it, and no failures, no issues. It actually was surprisingly fun to shoot. No real felt recoil. And yeah, that's about all to say. It's a modern AR-15, and frankly, quality AR will work. And I also brought out a model here of a F-22 Raptor. Two reasons: this isn't a gun and model video, but actually a wing operating the F-22 was the first to start issuing or keeping the ASDW on board beginning on April 23rd, 2019. So just under a year ago. And then after that, in May of that year, F-15E Strike Eagles started carrying these, and ultimately they're going to be stationed on pretty much every active combat unit in the Air Force. F-16s, F-15Cs, B-1Bs, B-2s, B-52s, yes, they're still flying, A-10 Warthogs, etc. So I just thought, another reason I brought the model out is it's really thanks to planning a model and gun video 2 weeks ago that we kind of found this gun at Midwest. Jay and I were sitting around in between a Q&A getting ready for, and we just happened to find this gun on Midwest's website and thought it was cool, and I didn't buy it that day. It was showing in stock. I went back a day or so later and it was showing out of stock, and because of the Corona thing, 6 to 8 weeks, you know, estimated delivery in June. Okay, well, I missed it. No big deal. Well, then for some reason, I just had finished getting all the guns ready to go. I think it was a Monday night or Tuesday night late. I looked back on the website and it showed back in stock. Now, I hesitated to buy initially because these are not cheap. They are $1,450 with free shipping, but yeah. I hesitated, it went out of stock. I thought, I kind of regretted my chance, but moved on. And then when they came back in stock, it was kind of odd because it showed in stock, but it also showed an ETA of May to June. So I put in my order thinking may or may not get it. Didn't hear anything from Midwest. Went ahead and emailed them my FFL. Didn't get any confirmation. It's like, okay, well, if I don't hear anything in a week or two, I'll call them. But about 4 days after that, I got a shipping notice, and it was here in a couple of days. So yeah, now we just checked before the video, and again, they're showing as out of stock, May, June to arrival. So yeah, it's just kind of funny how we stumbled across this because it is a new configuration. And speaking of, yeah, what do we have here? This is very much a takedown gun. Of course, this is a pistol. We have a 12.5-inch barrel plus flash hider. So we, instead of having a stock, we have an SB brace on the 6-position mil-spec tube. We have a folding pistol grip, so it'll fit inside the case. This is made by Fab Defense in Israel. This is I think it's a AGF43S grip. I don't know, all the numbers and stuff, right? We have these Magpul sights, as I pointed out, folding. But of course, the big deal is the Cry Havoc quick release barrel system, which is truly quick. You just charge your bolt back. I'm going to unplug my front sling, which is just on a stutter cutie. Just flip and flip to unlock it. And what I've found is if you do it this direction, it lets those latches fall forward nicely, and then you just pull out. Now, one thing I'll say is you can use the slide, the bolt hold back to manually do it, but I like to do it with a mag end just for safety, because you don't want that bolt going slamming forward. You can put it forward after, you know, like I just did, gently. Take this out, and you have a nice little compacted rear half and a nice little compacted front half. These kind of just fold forward and flush. Now, as Jay pointed out, a lot of the online criticism is saying, well, aren't all AR-15s takedowns anyway? No, because for one thing, this is still longer. And even if you separate upper and lower, the problem then becomes you have your guts showing, and of course there's nothing holding really your bolt in, so the chances of contamination are much higher. Keep in mind, this is a 10.3 inch barrel. By going to a takedown like this, they were able to do a 12.5 inch barrel, like I said. And that extra 2¼ inches really helps get to that range like the Air Force was wanting. With these compacted here, you see, it's about 15 inches, so it sits inside the case quite comfortably and leaves room for other gear, because obviously the more space this takes up in the kit, the less room there are for other supplies. So obviously if a pallet is downed, you'll just want to charge that. Put your barrel on. Now what's neat, they have a guide pin here to make sure you time it correctly, and it actually also protects your gas tube from getting it all buggered up if you do it wrong during a stressful situation, which obviously being ejected out of an airplane is the true definition of stress. So there's your barrel back on. Pistol grip locked down. We can let our bolt go forward now. Obviously we can plug in a sling if we want, because we have QD slots all over the place. Extend our knot stock out, although military wanted to have a standard M4 stock. Flip up our Magpul sights, and we have a combat gun ready to go in a pinch. They say that crewmen can have this ready to go in under a minute. As you saw, really it's much less than that, but accounting for disorientation and stress after an ejection, yeah, a minute. And as I said, they are supplied with 4 preloaded 30-round mags, so 120 rounds of ammo, plus the issued M9 if it's still on the person, and of course there's also a combat knife. And since we are able to have that 12.5 inch barrel with reasonably functional, decent, simple iron sights, it definitely does give almost as good performance as a standard M4 carbine or the standard Air Force's GAU5A, which is pretty much their mutt. So some other specs. We have a standard A2 flash hider on 1/2 by 28 threads. We have a low profile gas block. No bayonet lug, obviously. We have a free float handguard made by Midwest. The barrel is government profile. Now, one thing I found interesting, it's a 1-in-7 twist, that's to be expected. This is a nitride barrel from Midwest. Looking at the military specs, theirs seem to be made by BCM and nitrided as well. It's an interesting choice, but considering this gun was developed and put into service using mostly off-the-shelf components, it's to be expected. Like I said, this is a Cry Havoc system. This is marketed as the civilian versus the military. I sincerely don't know the difference. If anyone knows, please let me know how the military QD system differs from this. I would imagine maybe it has some kind of lock on it so the soldier couldn't quickly disconnect it in the field, but that's complete speculation. The sights, the Magpul sights, are also on the military gun. Typical M4 upper door assist rails. Of course, this is all M-LOK compatible, quite lightweight and slim. It's got its typical ambi safety. And yeah, pretty much your other, AR-15 accoutrement. So really, it's the quick detach 12.5-inch barrel and the folding grip that make this kind of special, plus just the general making it as light as slim as possible. The military version has a safe semi-auto 3-round burst trigger pack, FCG. Of course, the civilian pistol version is just safe semi-auto. And the military version has the standard 6-position tube with an M4 stock, as I said, and the civilian has the SB tactical brace. Of course, you could put any other brace that fits a tube on or whatever else, or you could SBR this if you so desired, but I don't know, it doesn't really seem worth it considering it's a relatively long barrel. So yeah, these entered into service and they're starting to get deployed. Now, Midwest is not making these for the Air Force. They're actually being made in-house by the Air Force's Armory in Texas. They're doing about 100 guns a week. They're basically taking standard GAU5Ps and modifying them, or taking M4s, newer carbines. Basically, they're taking whatever they've got carbine-wise and doing these mods, adding these parts. That's why they're off the shelf. And they're ultimately, the order is for 2,137 examples, and again, to be issued on active duty Air Force. Now, as of this time, the Air Guard, the Air National Guard, they are not getting the new GAU5A ASDW, although some are actually buying 10.5-inch barrel shorties made by Fabrique Nationale USA, and it could be very much later that the Air Guard will end up with these as well. And that's about all the info we could find. As far as the shooting comfort, a lot of fun, very little felt recoil. The only thing that we find a little disorienting, this folding grip has a little bit of wiggle to it. Not bad considering how easily it does fold, and it does unfold without the button. But I think what I'll do is add just a smidgen of black tape here just to tighten it up in the front, and that should help. But other than that, and that's not really a functional thing, that's just an aesthetic. It even has a small storage compartment inside, which I've put a couple of wrenches in for the M-LOK. But it really does seem like Midwest has put a lot of energy into making this as close to military as possible. But I'm not a huge AR guy. I mean, I'm definitely not an expert. So I asked Chris Bartacci how this differs from the military gun. He said only in 2 ways that he's aware of: not having a stock, having the brace, and having the civilian semi-only trigger pack. Otherwise, he said they're the same gun. Again, Midwest points out this is a civilian barrel system, but I couldn't really find out what the difference is. So if you know, please do share. And if you like models, we were starting to do a series here, and I do quite a few models on my personal channel over at Misha. Well, that's about it. During these Corona times, and there aren't a whole lot of neat new military type ARs coming on, so that's why we decided to pick this up. And after shooting it today, it seems like a really cool, interesting keeper. And All I need to do now is find an ejection seat survival kit so I can stick it in there, right? Anyway, if anyone else owns one of these, we'd love to hear what your experiences have been. This is just our first day with it, so it's kind of an initial review. But so far, we're impressed with the quality of Midwest. For example, the bolt group is military spec. The castle nut is staked properly back here. The handguard, like I said, is free-floated for best accuracy. Everything seems well put together and well presented. And they say that it has a lifetime warranty, so hey, if that's true, you can't say more fair than that, right, guys? We really do appreciate you tuning in. If you could, like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to help support the channel so we can buy more probably overpriced ARs like this, please check out the link to our Patreon page, and we'll keep churning out content as best we can during these times. This is Misha, and also on behalf of Jay, we will both catch you very soon next time.